Hey guys, we are in Volano Beach, St. Augustine. It's a beautiful area. If you actually look, you can see the COs to the sand dunes. The beach is right there past that blue house. Awesome location. Beautiful house too. We partnered up with one of our builders. This is a spec home in Volano Beach. He also has 4 more down here. They're all on the market, so feel free to take a look at them. They're amazing location. But this is one of our partner builders. And we are at the plaster phase at the moment. So we're getting pretty close to actually having the whole pool plastered before we start getting into the detail work of the plaster itself. I wanted to show you the truck. A couple things in the truck. Some of those buckets, so it's all called exposed aggregate. I want to get a little bit into what we do differently than the traditional method. It's the same plaster, exposed aggregate. CLI Industries is the plaster that we use. This is a dyed finish. It'll look Smurf blue when we get back there. And a lot of people have a heart attack, even if they have a white-based finish. They'll need sunglasses. Oh my God, it's so white, that's not the color I picked. The plaster is not exposed yet. And when we actually expose the plaster, that's what gives you'll see the finish that you picked out. The traditional method of exposing plaster is with acid, sulfuric or muriatic acid, usually muriatic acid. You're burning that fat or that cream layer off, and you're exposing the aggregate. What we do is a water broom exposure method. We don't want to use acid. We're always trying to fortify and densify our concrete as we're going through the process. When you add acid to anything, it's going to eat it up, it's going to break it down. The traditional method is, you're taking that, you're chemically etching that surface off, but you're also allowing acid to get into your concrete. We want to change that pH of that concrete as little as possible during its curing process. So we do also add a product called SetNCure to our finish. It's a densifier and a bonding agent. Also, by default, it allows the trowel guys to not trowel as much. They get a much more smooth trowel. The more, even with concrete slabs, the more you trowel that section, the more cream comes to the top and the aggregate sinks down. So if they're not having to work a certain spot so hard, it allows for the aggregate to stay in the same level throughout the pool. So when they go to expose it, you have the same exposure of aggregate throughout the pool. There's also a product that we spray on the finish as it starts to cure on the walls that is a curing arrestor. It slows down the curing process at that moment, because as we walk back there, you'll see the deep end of the pool is in the shade, the sun shelf is in the sun. Certain parts of the pool we're going to start curing at different times. We do 2 things for that. We actually permacoat, which I talked about in our tile phase. We permacoat our entire pools. That does several things. It's a bonding agent, it's a sealant, but it also, as it's a sealant, it seals in the different moisture. So in the deep end of the pool, we'll almost always stay full of groundwater throughout the project. That concrete's much more hydrated versus the sun shelf that's been cooking in the sun for the last 6 weeks. So it'll cure faster on the sun shelf than it will in the deep end. So we seal that moisture or the hydration levels to make it all the same. So if you have in the deep end of the pool, if it was wet, hydrated concrete without permacoat, you'll get more exposure in the deep end, because it's going to cure slower than the sun shelf that's going to harden up and cure faster. You'll get less exposure up there as you're trying to expose it because the finish is harder at that point. We probably won't see and spray that on just yet because it's still a little early in the process, but that is a few of the things that we do that you don't see in the process that goes for the longevity of the pool and the aesthetics of the pool off the get. The National Plaster Council does say you will have imperfection and variations in the finish. It's all hand mixed, and it's all hand trowel, which you'll see when we go back there. But we're trying to make it as perfect as possible right off the installation. So let's take a look, walk on back. We use straight pipe as much as possible. It allows us to pump further, for one thing. And it keeps the same mix ratio throughout. Instead of wheelbarrow it, we'll only wheelbarrow if we have to. We always try to pump it in. Stand up away from the fan, away from the noise. You'll see the guys are walking on cleats right now as they're doing their initial trowel. But they will finish on their fans. They used to put carpet on the bottom of their feet by the time they were doing their finish trowel and detail work, but now they got some fancy shoes now that they created, look like Crocs, that they'll be walking on that finish. But right now they're just spreading it, and like I said, it looks Smurf blue. And you'll have a heart attack that this is not the finish I picked until we actually expose the product. And that is at the end of this job, which will be today, they will room wash, water expose it, not acid. Tomorrow is when the wash down crew comes. I use a product called Pool Wash. We don't acid wash the pool as we do it. They're the ones that'll do the final detail, the wash down, and they'll start filling this pool up tomorrow. These guys put a lot of passion into their work, and that kind of comes from their top down. So it goes down to the guy doing the final detail trowel. That's why we use this particular crew. Right now we're doing the water exposure. So it'd be a combination of water and a broom. Be brushing it down, rinsing it down. Again, no acid. There's no acid used this whole process. We didn't use acid when we prepped the pool. We don't use acid when we're exposing the aggregate. There will be some acid used during the water chemistry side of it, but that's just for pH. You're not putting acid directly on a pool finish. You're just doing the water chemistry at that point. But you'll see how it turns Smurf blue to your exposed aggregate. This is a blue pearl, is what the finish is called. The pool that we were at that wasn't started up yet was blue pearl as well, but they added that abalone shell to it. So this won't have that sparkle shine to it. It's gonna be a beautiful watercolor when it's done, but it won't have the little sparkles and shine through it. And that abalone is actually a fairly cheap upgrade for what it is, to what it does. You know, it might cost you another $400 to $800 depending on the square footage of your pool. But it's a cool little feature, and it doesn't fade out over time. Some of these things are really cool in the beginning, they fade out over time, kind of like the glow in dark pebbles. You know, they fade out over time. The abalone is actually a true aggregate shell. It's still pretty raw at this point, but when you get that water in, that pool started up, it all comes together. It looks almost perfect, if not perfect. There's still construction debris at this point. This slurry that you see starting to pool up, it'll eventually get pumped out. It's got to go somewhere. So we have a lot of homeowners that, again, I was saying earlier, the landscape really puts the icing on the cake. If you are trying to jump ahead and get that landscaping done while we're still trying to finish the pool, we still ask for a spot in the yard. Doesn't have to be big, just to kind of consolidate our debris. We'll get rid of it as soon as it's done. But that's when we want, you know, we still need a spot to consolidate debris. This stuff's got to go somewhere. That's just part of the construction. I don't know if you notice in the bottom of those shoes, no tread marks. They're completely flat with a real thin, I don't want to call it carpet, but it's basically a felt on the bottom of those shoes. What would happen over years, and so you'll see it every now and then, you get a footprint in the pool. You'd have guys walking in there barefoot, or you'd have them strap carpet to the bottom of their feet, but your foot would still give it that indention. Not something that can be resolved, but we want it looking perfect.